Thanksgiving, a time where everyone is all of the sudden thankful, except for the turkeys. But now, turkeys have been learning, adapting, and evolving.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
This video is sponsored by me. Yes, that's my day look and my protein donut business along with my workout support group. For this week up until Thanksgiving, we are having a sale on my 12-week program and lifetime support group. That's right, you stay in the group for life because having a healthy lifestyle is a lifestyle. Also, if you would like to see how I put this evil revenge turkey together, check out the first video on my second channel, McDaniel After Dark. And don't forget to share this video, leave a comment, and of course, please subscribe, then hit the bell. Now let's get into it. Gluttony, habitual greed or excess in eating, one of the 7 deadly sins. Thanksgiving is the time when humans seem to embrace the word gluttony by overindulging in mashed potatoes, deviled eggs, and turkey. Most of you American humans are fat. But I do have to say that most of you humans know that overindulgence is negative. Treating every day as if it's Thanksgiving is not something you want to do if you want to live a long, healthy, and prosperous life, and if you want to see your toes. But what if I told you there are people who embrace gluttony and tell their followers it's okay to overeat all the time? In fact, it's your right to remain fat. We have talked about many people from the fat acceptance movement, but we haven't really tried to deep dive into their personal life, their background, their arc, and really give them the benefit of the doubt as to why they are the way they are today. Recently, I stepped out of my comfort zone, no, not comfort food, human, comfort zone, and entered the world of fat liberation. I read the book titled You Have the Right to Remain Fat. Now, normally I would look at this and say, what a bumbling piece of. But ever since I evolved, I'm trying this new thing of not being a stuck-up turkey. And look at you humans like you're ravenous, overindulging, bloodthirsty, fat murderers. We can all benefit from not judging and listening to people. Today we are taking a deep dive into the life of fat girl blogger, writer, and radical fat feminist book, You Have the Right to Remain Fat. Virgie Tovar is a loud, fat activist, the woman from Take the Cake. You know, where she complained about women asking for a smaller piece of cake because it's so annoying and takes so much effort to cut a smaller piece of cake.
If you're like many women, you've been to a birthday party or a small office gathering, an event that's meant to bring people together. And then it comes time to cut the cake, and someone decides to ruin everything.
Oh my God, that slice is huge.
Take the Cake is also a weekly online column that Virgie writes. She's the creator of the podcast Rebel Eaters Club, a podcast about breaking up with diet culture, one corn dog at a time. What the? And launched the hashtag campaign Lose Hate, Not Weight. She even created a body positive school. Don't worry, we're gonna cover all of that, but let's try to focus on the book. You Have the Right to Remain Fat. So let's start from the beginning. At a young age, according to the beginning of Virgie's book, she recalls her favorite memory when she was a young girl. She would come home from elementary school, run past the living room, past the dining room, and strip all of her clothes off, sprinted into the kitchen where her grandmother was cooking, and she would just jiggle her fat body. That was the beginning of the book. I'm all for childhood memories, but this fascination with gut jiggling comes into play in her adulthood, and I think it's weird. When she was young, she never thought of herself as fat. She was a bubbly little girl that loved her family, loved laughing, and jiggling. She explains it that jiggling her fat body was very freeing. Then, like many of us, she was called fat for the first time in preschool, and the whole perception of her body changed with that one comment. The comment came from a little boy who would chase other little girls trying to look up their skirts, but he would never chase Virgie. She would imagine that he would chase her, and she wanted him to chase her because she wanted his approval. She knew that he didn't chase her because he thought she wasn't desirable, like the other girls. As she aged, she would find herself trying every diet in the book, starving herself to attain the perfect body, all while she fought to get men's approval, acceptance, and to be desired. Once she was either 19 or early 20s, she dated a secretly married, pretty wealthy businessman who liked her to wear clothes that, and I quote, made her look like a teenager. He would take her out on expensive dates where she wouldn't order anything. She might pick at his food a little bit, but she normally would not order. One day she decided, you know what, I'm going to actually order food. I'm hungry. I'm going to order a dish and enjoy food on this date with this wealthy businessman. And she did. And she told him, you know what, I'm going to order something this time. He looks up from his steak and says, why? You aren't going to eat it anyway. According to Virgie, she felt kind of like a failure because he obviously noticed that she was refusing to eat on their dates, and she broke that routine by saying that she was going to eat, and his response didn't help. This is what the book is mostly about. Stories of how she struggled before she found fat liberation. Stories of how she struggled with body image and realizing that she shouldn't be blaming herself for hating her body or blaming herself that these men weren't treating her the way that she wanted to be treated or that these men were not giving her attention or didn't find her attractive. The core of the book is really about how she realized that she doesn't have to blame herself for anything. Instead, she blames everyone else, mostly men. In the book, Virgie likes to use a lot of trigger words that will make a lot of people reading it emotional. She compares fat phobia to transphobia, racism, and sexism, and pretty much blames straight white men and how their power to control and trap women on how they view their body. That women dumb themselves down so that they can fulfill what are expected of them, marriage and babies, and not be so loud, not to take up space, and of course be physically appealing to them so that they will want to us and allow us to have their babies. That was almost a quote from the book. And there is some truth to that. We have our issues too in the turkey world when it comes to certain type of men. She gives an example of a woman from a prestigious dinner party that she wasn't excited about. She had one good friend that invited her, so she went because of that, but these weren't her regular group of friends and she didn't feel very comfortable. These people talked about school, work, and her friends talk about fun stuff. But that's what she said. Hey, we all have our own definition of what is dinner talk, and Virgie's is butt stuff. One of the women were 6 feet tall and getting a PhD. She was creeping into her 30s and getting frustrated with dating because men have said that she was too much, too tall, too educated, and they seemed to be very intimidated by that. She told Virgie since she cannot control her height, she can control her education and was thinking of quitting school. Which I can relate to. I can see what she was saying. I am a turkey, but I am a buff turkey. And I would occasionally get the comment, not completely straightforward like this, but I kind of got what they were saying. The whole, I'm too opinionated, I'm too muscular. And it seemed that when I would bring up my goals or if I made more money than the man, they all of a sudden would lose interest and all of a sudden I was too much. I was also someone who would say the thing that a lot of entitled people do not like. No. I remember even reducing the muscle in my arms and doing a lot of cardio, only working out my glutes just so this guy I was slightly interested in, who made one comment about how boxy my arms were, would like me. He even noticed and gave me a ton of attention once my arms got slimmer. And he asked me on a date. Oh my God. Yeah, I started lifting heavier than I've ever lifted after I noticed how stupid I was being and how much I was downplaying myself just to make this dude feel comfortable so that he would find me able. So I did relate to that and understood, but to blame specifically all white cis males for fat phobia and the reason why many men didn't want to date fat women is pretty outlandish of her. Sometimes you do have to take a step back and look at yourself. I was a person who was mad at men because the majority of men that I was attracting were just egotistical, selfish men that really didn't have the best interest in me. Plus, I had daddy issues, girl. I have been through it. And it seemed I was blaming every single man who had nothing to do with those douchebag guys, but I would make sure that any man in my verbal reach knew that they were a man and they have a problem. And that's not fun to be blamed, judged, or put into a box because of other people's actions. Just like fat people do not like to be blamed, judged, or also put into a box. Why is it okay to blame all white, straight men and call them bigots and fatphobic when they say they aren't attracted to a fat woman? Bigotry comes up a lot in the book. Bigotry, obstinate or unreasonable attachment to a belief, opinion, or faction. In particular, prejudice against a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular group, which I have to point out that Virgie is kind of a bigot when it comes to straight white men. Let's talk about fat phobia and dieting from Virgie's perspective. According to our gluttonous queen, dieting is fat phobia, and unresolved fat phobia. Anything that's appeal or goal is to lose weight or change your body to become thin is a diet, period, and thus is fat phobic. This is straight from the book. And the sole purpose of diet culture, according to Virgie, is ultimately control. Controlling women to hate their bodies if we don't fit into what society or white straight men define as acceptable bodies. He even kindly gives us an example of what dieting is like. Dieting is like someone pissing on your leg then telling you it's raining, except it's more like someone shitting on your face and then asking you for $1, then going to your house, shitting on everything you own, and then setting that home that used to be filled with laughter and love that's now filled with shit on fire, and then blaming you for it. Dieting is telling people that they can't live their life on their own goddamn terms. Once again, straight from the book. Very odd way to put it, in my humble opinion. Now, according to Virgie, fat and thin are make-believe categories like gay and straight, brought into existence for no other reason than to control women. Virgie says no woman diets because they want to, they diet because they have to survive in this world that is controlled by men. Let's go over the section about gaslighting and diet culture. To manipulate someone by psychological means into questioning their own sanity. In the book, she said that she was constantly gaslit just by diet culture and people around her to ask herself, is she actually hungry or is she just bored? But then a few paragraphs after that, she pretty much gaslights her reader, saying, if you can answer yes to any of these questions that I'm about to ask you, you have been subjected to fat phobia, or the control that men have over you. Did you want to eat something and say no? Did you work out at the gym for hours? Did you wear clothes that were uncomfortable but you wore them anyway because they looked good? Did you answer yes to any of those questions? Oh my god, I'm sorry to tell you, but that's the man controlling you. I mean, what if someone doesn't want to overeat to reduce their stomach pain and wants to do a personal marathon on a treadmill, then after wash up and put a shirt on that squeezes their tits all the way up to their face for themselves? Another word that plays a role in fat phobia, according to Virgie, is misogyny. Misogyny, the dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. And then, just like the other terms that she used in the book, she tells stories from her past to relate to the word misogyny. According to Virgie, heterosexual masculinity is also rooted in fat phobia. Heterosexual masculinity is a cultural pressure exerted on males to be masculine in traits and heterosexual in orientation, or else be viewed as feminine and socially unacceptable. She gave an example of how men experience fat phobia. Man boobs. If a man is fat and has man boobs, he gets shamed because women are supposed to have boobs and men are not. She only had a very, very tiny section when it came to men and fat phobia, which, let's be real, that's not a surprise. But she pretty much said that when men experience fat phobic comments, it's because they have something that women have. Boobs. From what I got, this could be just me reaching. They are insecure about seeing a womanly thing on a man, and so they are going to shame them, just like they see a bigger woman and they think it's manly. So something I've always wondered is why they latch onto when talking about fat phobia. As a woman of color, it does irk me when these women put discrimination from obesity and race on the same level. Harriet Tubman is hard side-eyeing the Fat Clan acceptance group for that one. But I kind of got my answer from Virgie's perspective, of course. Fat people aren't presented in media like trans people, people of color, and disabled people. Another one that irks me because disabled people can't help that they're disabled. From what I understand, that fat people are kind of portrayed in media as not really human. They never have the main roles. They're either fat and funny.
What's your name? Fat Amy.
They're the butt of the joke all the time.
Harold, someone's here to see you. Go away! It's the pizza man.
And fat black women are portrayed even worse. So if you're a fat white woman, yes, you'll have it bad, according to Virgie. But if you are fat and black, or a woman of color or darker complexion, you are at the bottom of the barrel. It was very vague, and I found it interesting that Virgie is so educated, but she kind of skimmed over this just enough to get a black audience on her side. I'm reading a book called Fearing the Black Body, The Radical Origins of Fat Phobia, which goes into detail on the subject. And yes, I'll be making a review of that once I finish it. Make sure to subscribe. Leave a comment, share the video, boost the ratings, people. But back to Virgie. But for someone who talks about racism so much, I would think that she would go a little deeper into it. So near the end of the book, she tells us what really shifted her into getting into a, and I quote, a mega fat babe lifestyle. She went to a conference called No Lose. The revelation just got bigger, literally. No Lose is a volunteer-run organization dedicated to ending the oppression of fat people and creating vibrant fat queer culture. And the activist and empowerment work that we do, we envision a world where beauty, morality, health, humor, and fashion are divorced from size and shape, and all bodies are celebrated. They really actually mean fat bodies, but we'll let them pretend. Where all people have a right to basic human rights as well as joy, sensuality, and self-determination. And let's be clear that fat people have human rights. Where fighting fat phobia is seen as integrally linked to other social justice issues such as the women's movement, anti-racist and anti-imperialist struggles of people of color at home and around the world, queer and transgender movements, class struggle, disability right movements, and more. You see how they are always trying to wrap in all these other minorities' issues every moment they get. But I know why they do it, because they need a lot of people in their group so that less people look at them like, y'all are crazy. Can you imagine being called crazy by an evolved turkey humanoid? That's when you know it might be time to take a little step back and reflect on your life choices and how you present yourself. And where the diet industry closes up shop as the world sees their products for the oppressive and ineffective scams they are. Agree. When it comes to like diet pills and what they promise. Virgie stepped into the hotel and heard a bunch of women laughing. She walked near the pool and was amazed. A bunch of fat bodies just enjoying life. She saw a fat femme, redhead, with men holding umbrellas for her and was sold. Tess Holiday, by chance? At that moment, she realized after years of dieting and being told that her body was wrong, she learned that she didn't need to change her body. She needed to change the way she felt about her body. Let's talk about Virgie's perspective between the difference between body positivity and fat liberation or fat acceptance. Body positive warriors, according to Virgie, are silent about their demands. They don't want to be too threatening, and they're not radical enough. They want to make political strides through hugs and cute lunches. They defend diets and weight loss, and she says it's a bunch of white, straight females that are submitting to men's standards by being quiet and non-threatening so that these white females can access or keep their privilege that they get from their men.
An issue I have with body positivity is that the face of it becomes increasingly whiter, straighter, and thinner.
They're too afraid to be like the women from the fat acceptance community because if they acted like them, men wouldn't be able to handle how proud and loud they were. The body positive movement's demands, according to Virgie, are basically they want clothes to fit, more substantial access to heterosexual romance, and the right to claim that they are radical. Their expectations are dangerously low. And according to Virgie, they are still taking care of men and their feelings. According to Virgie, straightness has long kept women from what is ours, and it holds us hostage. The fat queers were proudly political and radical in their demands. And this is probably a great time to point out that she's with a dude, like a pretty attractive, thin dude, but I wanted to point out that whenever these fat activists date men, they seem to never date the male version of their body type. It just reminds me of those fat dudes that would never be caught dead with a fat woman. Anyway, alright. Next. Virgie also put a segment where she got asked, would her life be better if she was just thin? And she responded, no. My life would be easier if the world would stop oppressing her because she's fat. You don't get rid of bigotry by accommodating it, you get rid of bigotry by getting rid of it. And then at the almost end of the book, she kind of gives the reader almost a sales pitch. Actually, it was a sales pitch. I felt like I was 18 walking into GNC and saying, I really want something to help me lose weight. And then the cashier sprints over with the most expensive, most outlandish claims of a diet pill. Except with Virgie, it's in reverse. Most people can't imagine what freedom tastes like, but in my opinion, it's close to butter. Let me ask you something. What would life look like if you weren't constantly trying to lose weight? What would your life look like if I told you you could eat whatever you wanted, wear whatever you wanted? What if we lived in an imaginary world where we were never taught that certain foods were good or bad or healthy? What if we lived in a world where food wasn't charged with any moral meaning? Hot dogs weren't more morally inferior to carrots, and lettuce wasn't morally superior to Nutella. Imagine that you could wear whatever you wanted, any color, horizontal stripes or vertical. Imagine that your first words in the morning weren't, "I hate this body." Imagine that when you're walking around in public that people treated you with humanity and respect, and they didn't blame you when they didn't. Imagine that you never learned that butter was wrong. Imagine you learned that all bodies were equally deserving of affection. What if I told you that you have the right to that world? What if I told you that you didn't have to lose a pound to earn that life because it was yours a long time ago before it was stolen by men? Didn't say that part, but it's implied heavily. So after the sales pitch, she tells the reader how amazing her life is now that she has found fat liberation. She tells us all the food that she's eaten while overlooking amazing scenery like the Golden Gate Bridge, how she peed in the Hilton Hotel pool twice, and how she can once again do what she cherished about herself when she was little without shame. Take off her clothes and just jiggle. So I got curious since I read the book, and in the book it states that men control what is collectively attractive, and that is thinness. Basically exactly what we see portrayed in mainstream media. So I had a question for Virgie. What does she think of women who bodybuild? These women are definitely not the norm. They aren't portrayed usually in main roles or in the media, and if they are, it's really a joke. Example, Sandy Cheeks. Why all the buff people on screen have to scream and snarl at the mouth? I'm not saying I hate it, but the fat acceptance warriors always complain how fat people are portrayed in the media. Buff folks are the butt of the joke too. Example number 2, Starla.
Do you think anybody thinks I'm a failure because I go home to Starla at night?
They aren't making themselves thin. Honestly, according to many, they're making themselves quite masculine. Something straight white men wouldn't find attractive, at least according to Virgie. So what do I do when I have a question? I ask, except I couldn't ask. We have to be sneaky, my little fledgling, so a secret client of mine volunteered. She said, Michelle, wouldn't it be less suspicious if a fat girl messaged her? And I said, oh my gosh, and you're black? It's almost too perfect. So she infiltrated Virgie Tovar's safe space and asked, or shall I say, I wrote out the question and had her deliver the message, acting like she's the one that is so concerned about this horrible fatphobic situation that she's going through. Hey, I really love your videos. I just read your book and loved how you broke down the connection between fat phobia, racism, and colorism. I do have a question. What do you think of bodybuilding for women? My sister is constantly in the gym and has built her body not to be thin, but to be super masculine. What's your opinion on women who technically are not giving into the typical Western beauty of thinness, but are harming their body through strenuous lifting, constant dieting, and searching for their definition of perfection? I would like to give my sister some advice before she goes overboard. She's also constantly making me feel horrible about my body and always brings up lower calorie options. And guess what? She responded. And guess what else? She gave us some vague BS answer where she really didn't even answer the question. I think fat phobia is bigger than beauty standards. So she didn't answer any of my super basic questions, but I have a theory. She can't answer my questions because she would have to contradict herself. In the book, she said that anything that changes your body to make you smaller is a diet and is fat phobic. These women are actually making themselves lean but also big and aka masculine. If she says that they're great and liberating, wrong, because they're on a diet. And if close to a competition, they're on an extreme diet where they are constantly avoiding certain foods that would take them away from that nice plastic trophy on their show day. She can't answer the question because guess what? She will lose, and I, a fit turkey, will win. Oh, Virgie, I enjoyed reading your book. It helped me learn where you were coming from and helped me validate exactly what I thought about you. My judgment was correct. You are someone who was hurt when they were young, and you got a lot of comments that I got also when I was younger. Some of those comments I still get. Like a man. And I agree, those people are rude. The difference though is that what you're doing, Virgie, is killing people in the long run. You advocate eating as much as you want, not caring about what you put in your body. Intentional weight loss is evil. And if anyone does any of those things, they are a bad person. You're doing exactly what you say that you hate the media or straight white men do. If people do not conform to the way that you say they should live their life, then they're wrong. They are a bigot, they are fat phobic, or they're under some spell of the straight white man and don't know that they're being oppressed, and they need you to break down how oppressed they are because they haven't eaten a whole cake and jiggled their body in a pool that they peed in. You use these trigger words to spark an emotional reaction to your reader and use examples of asshole men to help your agenda, which you say in your book that you do not have an agenda, but it's clear that you do. You said that you are a part of the fat acceptance movement. The fat acceptance agenda is to make the world think obesity is just dandy. I mean, you even said that the body positive demands or agenda is not radical enough for you. You just didn't use the word agenda. You are nothing more than someone that is clearly insecure and had a lot of hurtful comments thrown at you, bullied when you were younger, and your pain has carried into your adulthood. You have found your voice, which is great. And I agreed with a few things that she stands for: holding men, or I like to say people, accountable, speaking up for yourself. Extreme crash diets are not sustainable. Actually, they're more harmful than good. Looking at your body and just being your biggest fan, wearing whatever you want. There's a lot that I agree with, but there's a lot I don't agree with, such as this whole it's totally fine being fat. Yeah, if you want to be fat, go ahead, but don't try to silence the people who talk about health while in the same breath you say that you're tired of people telling you to be silent. Reading this book, I can see why the movement gained so much traction. The people that follow her are clearly insecure, probably have dealt with similar experiences and relate to her. And it's so easy to say, you know what? Just take the cake and blame everyone else for your issue. If they aren't attracted to you, simply say it's fat phobia and the misogyny of men. It's so easy. Honestly, Virgie is the female version of a neckbeard, expects men to like her, and when they don't, she gets angry, except she just covers it up and says fat phobia and misogyny. And then people feel bad for her. Why? She's in the same category as this guy and belongs in those Reddit forums. So Virgie Tovar, yes, you are right. You have every right to remain fat. But I have every right to say that obesity is dangerous, not healthy, sad. You are the definition of gluttony at its finest, and you profit off of people who are insecure, easily manipulated, and searching for acceptance without having to change a thing in their life. And then there's you, corn dog in hand, arms open wide, ready to teach these women all about body positivity. The right way, not the white straight woman way, but the Virgie Tovar way, the $300 way. Yes, $300 and you can enter whatever realm Virgie Tovar's in. It's kind of like the cheesy sales pitchy trainers at the gym that will specifically target the fat people that look uncomfortable and manipulate them into getting extremely expensive training with low quality trainers. Virgie Tovar, I have to say thank you so much for writing this book and allowing us to get into that head of yours. I'm so happy that I got to see your point of view and learn your background as to why you are the way that you are today. I understand, but I'm not surprised. So yes, you do have the right to remain fat. And I have the right to work out, be lean, be muscular, get thin, and choose whatever diet I like. And it just so happens to be us new humanoid turkeys Thanksgiving too. And it seems that my dinner is right in the audience.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. I've been on the flex since flex on. Neighborhood all in your eardrum.